Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. Today we are talking about the Great Coffee Resignation. You may have heard this term in the press, the Great Resignation, and the hospitality industry is amongst the most affected by the Great Resignation. So let's talk about that at length in this episode. Before we get started, if you are thinking about preparing for 2022, whether you're a small business or a solo entrepreneur, head to the show notes and click on our link to give you access to an upcoming workshop, our last for this year, that is about customer acquisition planning. So, the Great Coffee Resignation, what is it? Why is it happening? How's it going to affect everybody, etc., etc.? 2020 and 2021 has given a lot of people reason for pause. It has given people a lot of reason to reassess their personal life, their professional life, their future, how they want to spend every moment of their day, where they want to contribute their energy to, and what they want to feed themselves with regards to their interactions in life, feeding their mind and their thoughts, feeding their feelings, and feeding their bodies. What happened was that a lot of people decided that they deserve better than working for minimum wage. They deserve better than working for people who are not quite the ultimate small business owners. And what you've started to see is as people took a long time off because they were being subsidized by governments to take time off, they started to rejuvenate. They started to ask themselves the kinds of questions that you should be asking yourself about your long-term mental health and your long-term physical health. And they started to realize that they no longer wanted to return to these jobs that were not serving them anymore. And hospitality is grueling. The hospitality industry, which the coffee industry is a part of, found itself with people not coming back after government stopped government subsidies. Now, this was not what people expected. The majority and the general consensus was, let's cut government funding because then people will come back to work. And the reason that a lot of coffee small businesses weren't able to get staff, this is what the general consensus was, is because baristas are lazy, and if given the opportunity to sit at home and do nothing, they would prefer to do that because they just want a handout. And this is not correct. When the government money was taken away, the majority of the workforce decided not to come back to work. Now, there was a really great episode of The Daily that spoke about a natural experiment. This was spoken about on The Daily by the New York Times, and it was also spoken about on Planet Money, The Indicator by Planet Money, another podcast. And what they spoke about was that there was a natural experiment that took place in America. A natural experiment is something that happens naturally that you wouldn't normally be able to run as a study because it would be unethical to do so. But if it happens and it occurs naturally, you can study it. And a bunch of economists did study this. They took the 50 states that did bring back or that cut off government funding, government subsidized stimulus checks, and they compared those to the states, which incidentally was split 50-50. Percent, not states. They compared the ones that cut government stimulus with the ones that didn't cut government stimulus. And they found that the difference between the people that returned to work versus the people who did not return to work was negligible. And what economists were able to surmise from that was that it is not a stimulus funding thing that is keeping people away from work. People are just choosing differently. The reason this is important for our industry to pay attention to is because if you are still thinking that your workforce is coming back, it is highly probable that it is not. It is highly probable that you will be left unless you make some severe changes to your business model that is focused on culture and long-term career prospects, etc., etc. All the things that people want to come to work for a business for. Unless you are heavily focused on that, and unless you are changing your hiring strategy, it is most likely that that will not be the case. Simply because people have decided not to return to jobs that didn't serve them, of which the coffee industry seems to be one of. If you are a small business owner and you are listening to this and you have been finding it difficult to hire, and I can tell you that there are businesses that were great to their employees. In our mastermind groups and one-on-one coaching, we have seen that they have decided to scale down because even though they were great, they just don't want to go through the hassle of having to try and find ways to attract staff at a time where they don't believe staff are coming back. And so if you're a business that is not seeing a return of your workforce, I would urge you very quickly to start thinking about ways that you're going to pivot your business models and to change your business plans. We spoke about business planning in the last episode. We spoke about customer acquisition plans in the episode, a couple of episodes before that. This is all so important, and all of these are different pieces that come together to make up your strategy as a business. And the reason it's important to consider all of these things separately and together is because they all fit together. You can't have a customer acquisition strategy without understanding the staff that you have available to you to execute on that customer acquisition strategy. Without understanding what your customer acquisition strategy is, you won't be able to understand how much staff you need to have to do the things that are necessary. So, what I would recommend, figure out how you can automate as much as you can. Figure out how to cut the fat from your budget, whether that means you need to downscale and reduce when your leases are coming up for your locations. If you have 3 locations, it may be time to downsize to 1 location. And I know a number of businesses that are taking that strategy. It is time to look at what your 10-year plan is and how your growth strategy was built around opening more sites. Is that feasible anymore? The Great Resignation out of coffee across the world is something that you will have to take seriously, even if you're not experiencing a mass exodus of staff now. The pool of employees that you will be able to pull from is already more competitive than it was. I hope this has given you something to think about and that you'll be able to act on. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.